Hi, guys. How's everybody? I hope everybody's doing well on this Tuesday evening. We're, oh, what a day. It's already been a day. Okay. So, before we get started with the Jensen trial, I wanted to give you guys an update on some of the trials that are coming up. I have a video that I'm working on just to like keep it all straight or whatever, so everybody will know what I'm going to cover and when. So today, Miss, I don't know how to play hide and seek correctly, Sarah Boone had a pretrial hearing, and it was supposed to be smooth sailing, basically just a status checkup, ready to go for January 30th. Well, no, that's not what happened. Oh, okay, Molson, I will definitely do that too. That didn't happen. So what happened was was supposed to have a in-person meeting. I guess I don't know if it's a Florida thing. I think it might be. Anyway, she's required to have an in-person meeting with her attorney. Well, apparently her attorney had the vid and couldn't do it. And so she wasn't even in court today, which is weird because she requested that she be present for everything and she wasn't there. But her attorney appeared via Zoom and said, we need more time. So, oh, excuse me. I didn't mean to burp in you guys' ear. So, yeah. Oh, welcome, Faraway Eyes. Thank you for joining membership. Welcome. Let me see. Oh, welcome to the 11 billion club. It's good to have you. So, okay, so there's that. So there, plus he needed time to prepare her defense. Are y'all sitting down because you need to be sitting down for this? Okay, I hope you're sitting down. She's going with the battered wife's defense. You heard. That's what I said. The battered wife's defense. So there's that. So, okay, I'm annoyed that the trial isn't going to be until April. Super annoyed because there's a bunch of trials that are going on in April. Um, so I'm annoyed by that. But the fact that she's using that defense is annoying, and it's going to make for an interesting trial because you know that the prosecutor is going to play the extended cut of her videos that she recorded on her phone at the time of the incident. And yeah, so good luck to you with that because gross. I'm sorry, Nonstop Mom. I gave you ample time to sit. I'm sorry. Could you not find a spot, babe? I'm sorry. You got to tell your fam, your people, when Jen Lu is on, I need to have my spot because she says some things and sometimes I got to sit down for these things. I need to brace myself, so clear my spot. I'm sorry, Nonstop Mom, but I'm glad you guys are all here. It's so good to see everybody. So there's that. Also, for Olivia Chicky Nuggy Pot Pie Esquire. So she's doing much better. She has recovered from the pneumonia. She is on the rebound from, I think I think it's Chiari. I think that's how you say it. Basically, what it is because she had to be on such strong antibiotics for her pneumonia, it depleted all of her good flora and bacteria that is in her intestines. And so, yeah, but she's doing much better. I talked to her this morning on video chat, and she was just chattering away to me, telling me all the things and showing me her Christmas presents. And she got on her little thing and she rode her little bike that she got for Christmas, and she's having the time of her life. So they I think they're closing in on their goal. And I know that let me, they did apply for a house that's much closer to the hospital where she goes for all of her treatments, including where she'll be for her, um, probably for her transplant, unless they decide that they want to do the transplant in Ohio. And that's still a possibility. We just don't know yet. But anyway, they have to get everything all straightened out with the bacteria, the tummy situation and all that first, and they got to get her, back on her medication and sort of get her leveled out before they can consider doing this transplant. But she's got to have one more is it a CAT scan? Yes, a CAT scan um, on her lungs. So there we go. And but they did find a house and they applied for it and they did get it, and they have moved in, and they are using that money from the GoFundMe. Obviously they used it towards moving expenses and plus to because they had to break their lease. So they have used it in the purpose for which it was intended. And I'm very proud of them and I'm very happy for them. They Elizabeth showed me around, we do the video calls all the time, and she showed me around her new place, and it's adorable. And Olivia is very, very much at home, and they got all kinds of space. It's a house instead of an apartment, so there's a backyard and everything. So, yeah, Nonstop Mom, they were thinking that if they do when they do the stem cell transplant, the bone marrow transplant, it might end up being in Ohio rather than in Texas. There is a possibility that the transplant will be in Ohio. So, but even if it is in Ohio, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it if that's what happens. But where she is seen on a regular basis, where she goes for her other treatments for her rheumatoid or systemic rheumatoid arthritis, or the juvenile, whatever, you know what I'm talking about, is they wanted to be closer to that facility because that's where all of the things are. So even if she were to get that transplant up in Ohio, as soon as she would be cleared, they would come back to Texas, and that's where she would go to for her continuation. So that's where they wanted to be. Yeah, so she's doing much better, and like I said, she was on the phone with me today, and she was just, how they do the chitter chatter, and they just and she's so cute, and her little face lit up, and she was just telling me all the things. And she's really starting to there, like, it was some gibberish, but then I could understand like every other word. She was using actual words, so she'll be two the day after my birthday. So, yeah, yeah. So, that's the plan. And so, I had planned to go to Texas for Olivia's birthday because my birthday's not a big deal, right? But they are right together. But we've kind of decided let's wait and see what's the date for this whole transplant situation, because Elizabeth is thinking that would probably be better for me. She's going to need help, and all of that. They'll need a break and stuff, to have a third person to be able to be at the hospital sitting with her in case that, just for them to go back to a hotel and take a shower or something. You know what I mean? So we're just going to play it by ear. So that's what's going on with Olivia Chicky Nuggy Pot Pie Esquire. So the other trials. Oh, before I wait, let me not segue yet. I really want to thank everybody for checking in on Olivia when you guys see me in chats, when I'm live. Molson Man texts me. He's so sweet. Emailing me. Just being so incredibly supportive and praying for Olivia sending me words of encouragement, praying for our family. I cannot thank you enough. I really cannot. I cannot tell you how much your support has meant to me and your encouragement. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart, from me, from Olivia, from Elizabeth. We all thank you so, so much for donating everything, all of it. I cannot thank you enough. And I don't really have the right words to express how grateful I am to have such cool people in my life. I'm just eternally grateful. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, I will, Amelia. I absolutely will tell her that, she checks up on my YouTube every once in a while. She's really on me. She wants me to do a TikTok and she wants to manage my TikTok for the true crime. And I've been putting it off, but I need to do it. So that's, that's the plan. So if you look, I'll share it whenever I get it for you tickety talkers. I'll share it with you guys. So, all right, and it's a lot for me to be so mushy. I'm not good at it. I feel so awkward. I feel like I don't come across as grateful as I am. And I am incredibly grateful. Okay, now the other things that I wanted to tell you guys is that, so the trials. So tonight we're going to talk about Mark Jensen. There is another trial that I am watching that is equally as interesting, and it is taking place in Iowa. It is Iowa versus Alexander Johnson. And he stands accused of unaliving his family. So it was his mom, his dad, and his sister, and calling 911 and saying that a masked intruder did it. And he even, shot himself in the foot, literally. And, but the holes in his story were bigger than the hole he shot in his foot. And so now he is on trial for that. You guys are all just amazing. Oh, I'm going to check it out, Molson. I'm going to check it out. Absolutely. I absolutely will. I got to stay like away from the public. So as soon as it's available to stream, I will, just because I don't want to take any chances. I don't want to get sick or be around anybody that's sick. And Elizabeth says, Mom, I need you to come, and I've got to go, and I'm carrying germs with me. So I'm trying to stay like in my little bubble, trying not to go anywhere, but I'm definitely going to see it. So then there's the trial we're going to talk about tonight, which is actually a very, very interesting trial because it's a retrial. And so it's Mark Jensen. In 1998, his wife, Julie, died unexpectedly, right? And within, I don't know, like a week, he had his girlfriend move into the house. And in 2002 is when he was charged with her murder. And then in 2008 is when he was convicted of her murder, his first trial. And then in 2013, he appealed it. And he appealed it and he appealed it and he appealed it and he appealed it all the way to the federal level. All right. Well, one of the things that was used as evidence of his guilt was this letter that Julie allegedly wrote right before her death, basically thinking that he was poisoning her. So, which he was. The allegations are that he poisoned her with antifreeze, which he didn't do it in one fell swoop. It was slow and it was over time and it was miserable. And this one is Wisconsin. Did I write Florida? I sure did. Oh my God, I need to fix that. I was thinking about Boone when I wrote it. I need to fix the thumbnail. I'll fix it. Thank goodness you reminded me. I didn't even catch that. I thought that looked weird. Okay, well, I'll fix it. Oh my God. All right, so it is Wisconsin. Thank you for telling me, Wilson. I have got to fix that. Jeez, now it's going to bug me, and I'm going to want to fix it right now, and I can't. So that's the trial we're going over now. I want y'all to brace yourselves, okay? Because today, when I was watching the trial, we're like on day 4. Okay, you haven't really missed much because today was the best part. So I cannot believe I did that. So I was watching today, and they've got this witness on the stand, and he was a coworker of Mark Jensen's, and they ended up becoming friends, and then their families became friends, and so he knew them both. He knew both Julie and Mark. He knew about the affairs, yada yada yada. Right? Okay. So he's on the stand, and um, he um, he is getting asked these questions, and he's talking about this day when he walked into Mark Jensen's office, and there was like a stenographer's pad, a steno pad, and for whatever reason he picked it up, and he was rifling through it, and it was nothing but hand drawn pee-pees. So the I can't remember what question he asked, but the defense lawyer objects and says relevance. And here comes the state, and they're already giving an argument, even though the judge hasn't actually asked for his argument. Well, he goes on to say that um, the people who are expected to take the stand are gonna tie this all up. But more importantly, in the appeal, the decision that was handed down by the judge, the word penis is mentioned in his appeal over 150 times. I think he said it's some kind of record for Wisconsin. There's no essay in this trial at all. But what there is the state alleges that prior to the poisoning, prior to this is how it started. It started out with him psychologically messing with her, abusing her, terrorizing her. Okay, because she had an affair. It was very brief, but what he started to do is send her, like, print out pictures of various acts and leave them on her car. He did all kinds of crazy stuff, and yeah. And so basically what the state is saying is that how they arrived at the fact that it was him that was doing all of these things is because he had a preoccupation with peepees. In fact, his girlfriend, um, at the time, I don't know what their status is now. I don't think that they're together, but at the time, well, she's going to testify today. Well, yeah, it was today. Also, that he even like would grilled her about the men that she had been with and want her to go into detail and describe their genitalia. And so, yeah, and he had something like some crazy number of PPs on his computer. So, yes. Um, yeah, so that's that. Um, Also coming up January 24th is Alex Murdaugh. Now, probably what will happen on the 24th is when they give a trial start date, I've started to figure this out. It doesn't mean that the trial is actually starting. Sometimes it means that the jury selection is starting, but I don't know for sure. I just know it says the trial is supposed to be January 24th, and I was trying to figure out if they'd already picked a jury or not, but I don't know yet. So I'll get back to you on that one. But either way, those are the trials that I'm covering. So Megan Boswell's trial got pushed back until the 2025. The Valo Daybell trial is April 2023. Courtney Cheney is April of 2023. Boone is April of 2023 also. And I don't even know, they don't even have an update on Sheila Keene, which is the Killer Clown trial. So whatever, we'll just play it by ear. So let me, you know what? Let me change this thumbnail because it's really gonna, oh, I can't change it. Shit. I'll have to wait till I can fix it. All right, let me just switch my account real quick and get this trial for you guys. Also, while I am setting up for everything, I am working on a Kai, the hatchet-wheeling hitchhiker video, and I'm gonna do 2 videos. So one will be, for everybody, and then I'm gonna do a members only video that's gonna have like bonus content, interviews, and stuff like that I can't really get away with, that you need to see, but I can't really get away with putting it on. It has to be members only. So I think I'm going to do that at the, what is it? The 5 Ever Club. So if you guys want to wait until the beginning of the month, February, and upgrade, I will have that up there I'll have the first one before February, but anyway, that's that. What else am I working on? Oh, I have not forgotten about the Idaho 4. This weekend I have some things that I want to discuss pertaining to the Idaho 4. I want to look at some stuff, show you guys some things, some interesting things that I have, found, and, just stuff for us to go over. This is what I want. I cannot, this whole situation with the thumbnail is really going to make me mad. All right. Give me just a second. What is in it? Okay. All right. Let me share screen. What are we talking about? Hold on. Let me look at chat real quick. Yeah, it is a super, super long time away. Oh, I'm sure. It's driving me nuts. I can't stand that I wrote that. I do not know I know where my brain was. I do. I know where it was. I was not on what I was supposed to be doing because I was so irritated with dadgum Sarah Boone and her shenanigans. All right. Also, I want you guys to know, I want you to know, oh yes, I did, but there's a lot of stuff about Kai's case that, I mean, it's not their fault, that Netflix didn't get to. And that's the part that I want to cover. And I also want to cover, like, I have to do it in a way where if you don't watch or don't have Netflix, didn't watch the documentary, you'll still know what I'm talking about. But I was waiting for a few things to come, and I'm just decided, YOLO, I'm just going to put it out. All right, are we ready? Also, I really like this judge. He doesn't mess around. He gets to the point. I thoroughly enjoy him. All right, so here we go.
If we don't have a lot of videos in the afternoon, I think everybody, if I asked for a raise of hands, I think I would get 16 votes. That's just a statement.
We only have short videos left.
Beautiful.
There's 48 minutes left of Brian Cosman, but after that, all the video.
Oh, I don't want to watch this guy.
That's good news.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let's get to the friend, because that's the good part.
So much weight.
Right here.
What's about that? These photos are being left around. Photos were.
Oh yes, this is where we want to be.
These harassing phone calls, were they all hang-up phone calls, or did she complain about any other types of phone calls?
To her, they were all basically just hang-up calls.
Her husband answered the
Particular.
phone. So these hang-up.
Recorded hang-up. That's all.
Are you moving 15 in?
I am.
Right, 15 will be received. All right, what's next for us?
They would call Dave Nearing to the stand.
What number is that?
And honestly, I
52,
put a
thank
little,
you.
I had to put a pin in the Idaho 4 case, because I talked to you guys about the probable cause affidavit, right? We know about that. And beyond that, I really want to wait until his probable cause hearing comes out, or until we get something official from law enforcement. Because one of the things, before we start on this, one of the things that I'm confused about with this case, I understand the gag order. I understand who the gag order pertains to. I understand what the gag order means. It means that you can't, that law enforcement or anybody dealing with prosecuting this case or involved in this case, the media can't call them up and they can discuss their opinion on something, right? But they are allowed to cite documents. Like they could quote the probable cause affidavit. You know what I'm saying? I understand how it works. Yet what I'm seeing in the media is all of these leaks. And I really don't understand it. And to be quite honest with you, I'm a little bit frustrated with it. So I had to be like, I need a break. I can't look at this case anymore, but there is some things that I want to like go over that I found that were interesting. And so, yeah. And then with Kai, here's my thing with Kai. Also, I'm having, this is another issue. I'm having a little bit of a struggle with how I feel about the case. And I'm talking about from a purely legal aspect. There's some issues. And until I can get some confirmation, because right now I'm reading through there, his case is on case law, but it's a long freaking read. And obviously it's in legalese. So, you know, I mean, I'm smart, but I'm not a lawyer. So, but anyways, before I just want to make sure that I've done my due diligence and present something thorough for you guys, really. Something different than watching Netflix. Do you know what I mean? So I'm having a little internal conflict there, but it's coming. Don't you worry. All right, here we go. We're not going to be going anywhere since I muted him. Uh-huh.
You just remain standing. Raise your right hand. So I swear the testimony is meant to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Get as close as you can to that microphone, the smaller one. Spell your first and last name for the
Whoa,
reporter.
whoa. Hi.
David, David,
It's very loud.
Nearing, Nehring.
Thank you.
Mr. Nearing, do you know a person by the name of Mark Jensen?
I do.
All
you
right,
see him
so
anywhere in this
I'm going to
courtroom
be
today?
right
I
back,
do.
but I'll
Could
be
you
in the
point to him,
cast.
describe what he's wearing?
He's over there wearing the headphones.
I request the record show the witnesses identified the defendant.
All right, the witness is identified, Mr. Jensen, here in open court.
Can you tell the jury when and where you first met Mark Jensen?
I first met him around 1990 or 1991 when I worked at Prudential Base Securities in Milwaukee, and Mark had joined the company around that time.
So at that, when did you first start working for Prudential Bach?
I believe 1987.
So by the time Mark Jensen had joined in 1990 or 91, you'd been there for 4 years or so.
That's correct.
And after Mark Jensen joined the firm, did you and he become better acquainted?
Yes, we did. We became friends.
How often would you speak to him on a daily or weekly basis?
Both, many times daily and all week long.
How would you describe your relationship with him?
It was good.
So was it a friendship or a business relationship or both?
No, it was a friendship. I got to know his wife and son, and we did things socially.
Do you remember a time in 90 or 91, shortly after Mark Jensen joined Prudential back, walking into his office and finding something on the desk?
I do.
Tell the jury about that.
It was a smaller 8x10, 8x12 stenographer's notebook. And inside of it, the entire thing was sketches of penises.
Judge, I move to strike as irrelevant.
What's the relevance, Mr. Jambus?
Well, Your Honor, the defendant's preoccupation with penises is going to be central to a good portion of the other evidence in this case. It was the defendant, there's going to be testimony that there were 2,200 penis photos found on Mark Jensen's office computer. And many of these photos were of the sort that were being left around the residence from 91 through 98. And a point of contention is that the defense is saying that it wasn't Mark Jensen that was leaving them there. And the state has clear evidence that it was Mark Jensen that produced them and left them around there. And this evidence here further reflects the defendant's preoccupation with penises. Furthermore, there's going to be testimony from from Kelly. Well, her name was Kelly Labonte, then Kelly Greenman, then Kelly Labonte again, then Kelly Jensen, in which she also testifies about Mark Jensen examining her in great detail about each and every penis she'd ever seen.
To this all being brought out in front of the jury. My objection was relevancy. I'm not asking about what every other witness for the rest of the trial is going to say. The relevancy objection is this witness talked about sketches versus photos. I don't understand the relevancy of something that happened from 1990 or 1991 as it relates to
Well,
an
going
oral.
back, folks, but I apologize for your early break here. All right, the jury is outside the courtroom. Ms. Krause, you indicated you object to what was said in front. I don't know what the lawyers are going to say, so I wish I could.
I understand that, but my objection was not a
I know,
speaking
so
objection.
you can continue. Go ahead.
Judge, I guess my concern is this. According to what I've heard this morning, and this is the first time the defense has been notified that Mr. Nearing was going to say this, was this morning. And allegedly this book that was found was like handwritten drawings of penis pictures. There's nothing in the rest of this trial that indicates that there is anything that matches these handwritten drawings to photographs of someone having sex or performing oral sex. So I just don't see the relevancy of something that happened in 1991 with handwritten drawings if it actually happened.
Well, if Mr. Jambos can tie it up, I think it's relevant to the photos. I don't know if he can tie it up, and that the only way we're going to find out is through this witness now. So,
Well, through this witness, Your Honor, and other witnesses, and just, it should hardly come as a surprise that we're going to be talking about penises in this trial. That in Jensen 2, the Court of
we are
Appeals-
Jensen 3 for the record, right?
I know we're on Jensen 3, but if you go back and read Jensen 2, the Court of Appeals decision, the word penis appeared 115 times in that decision. I'm pretty sure that set a new record for Court of Appeals decisions in the state of Wisconsin. Mr. Jensen's preoccupation with penises is a major part of the state's case. It demonstrates why the defendant was so upset about this one affair that Julie had with this Perry Tarika, that it occupied him throughout the course of his entire relationship with her. And Mr. Nearing will testify that he never forgot about it. It's something that bothered him throughout the entire time that he knew Mark Jensen, and it ate away at him. We just had testimony the other day from Ed Klug, in which Ed Klug testifies about there being penis drawings at this drunken party at the Marriott Hotel on November 5th, 6th, or 7th of 1998. Kelly Labonte, or I don't know what her last name is right now, but when she testifies later today, she's going to testify about Mark Jensen examining her about the size, shape, and circumference of every penis she'd ever seen. And we have his notes that he took during that conversation, and they're going to be introduced into evidence. And those are also penis drawings that Mark Jensen did, that he produced. So Mark Jensen's very bizarre, strange, unusual preoccupation with penises and penis drawings is very much a part of the state's case. And it does tend, and then along with his 2,200 penis photos that were in his office computer, it will afford the jury the opportunity to draw the most very reasonable inference that it was Mark Jensen was the source of these photos that are being left around the residence. We're also going to hear testimony about Mark Jensen assuming the identity of other people while on the internet. So he did this with, there's going to be testimony about that when Jason Ruff testifies. He's the computer expert, where Mark Jensen manufactured an email with a bunch of penis photos attached to it and made it look like it came from Turtle to Julie Jenson, when actually the evidence will show that Mark Jensen manufactured it, created it, sent it to himself, then deleted his name from the from folder and from the to section, replacing them with Turtle
Michelle
and
K.,
Julie
I
Jensen,
really
respectively. There's going to be
don't
testimony
think there
about how
could be.
when he was working at Stifel Nicholas, and Mark Jensen was the office
Look at his
manager
face.
at Stifel Nicholas, or the senior vice president at Stifel Nicholas in the Racine office, that he was sending emails to
I totally forgot
Barry
about
Peterson,
catfishing. He catfished somebody
using the moniker,
too. I forgot about
quote,
that.
warm Irish eyes, unquote. So he as though Barry Peterson was receiving these emails on this dating app, and it looked like it was coming from a person named Warm Irish Eyes. And these emails also contained penis photos and questions like, is yours as big as this, or things of that sort.
Oh my.
Just shows a very strange, bizarre preoccupation with penises. And that's very much a central part of the state's case, especially with regard to other X evidence.
Go ahead.
I don't think it's relevant. I don't think it goes to whether or not Mr. Jensen committed a first-degree intentional
Hey,
homicide.
Vincent's missing here. Good to
That's
see
the
you,
argument that
babe.
I'm making. I understand that the court is saying that there might be a link up. I guess my concern is if there's no link up, it's already out.
Well, I think it's relevant, and I'm only going to say it once. I think there's so much penis evidence in this case. It's already been directed through the video. There's already been pictures. And I
couldn't
did
make
read
it as a
Jensen
juror in
too,
this
and the
case,
Court of
I'm telling
Appeals
you guys
mentioned it
right
numerous
now.
times, more than any other case I've ever seen.
You
And
guys have
I
already
think
said
the
it more
issue
than
is
in
the weight of
any
the
other
evidence,
case
and
I've
that's
ever
something for
seen.
the jury. And the
Just so
defense
you
is free to
know.
argue that later. And
It's
let the
too
jury
much.
decide whether this evidence
See, this is why I
has
like
any
this
bearing here. But I
judge.
think it's an issue that's been presented
Like, let
now
the
by the
jury
state, and I
figure it
will
out.
allow it. So let's bring back the jury, and we will continue.
Judge, if we're going to have further
Hang on.
if we're going to have further arguments in front of the jury about other witnesses' testimony, I would ask that be outside the presence of the jury. I think
I
that
agree
that
with you, but I didn't know
Yeah, I-
what Mr. Jim was going to say.
I would say this, that the kind of, when you raise an objection on relevancy, it's kind of an invited response that the prosecutor is going to explain why it's relevant. So I suppose you could ask for a sidebar, but if you're going to object on relevance grounds, then are we going to immediately break? Because I was just responding to the objection.
I think that if we're going to go into what other witnesses are going to testify, then the prosecution should have asked for a sidebar. My objection was simple. I did not go into it more because I didn't think I should do that in front of the jury.
I agree. And if it's relevance, I'll
agree
let you
too.
know whether I'm going to sustain it right away or we need more argument. So we're all on the same page.
Yes,
Okay.
we're
All right,
all on
bring
the
the jury
same
back.
page. Let's just move this very awkward conversation along. Listen, I'm sorry, you guys, but this is the the crux of the case because
You can have a seat.
well, hang on, I'm gonna push pause real quick for commentary. Give me just a second. So here's the deal. The issue here is that Mark Jensen, they're going into essentially motive. All right. And what he did also leading up to the actual unaliving. So the the thing is that prior to the beginning of him like poisoning her with the antifreeze, he was also, like I said, emotionally terrorizing her with these pictures and leaving them, on her car, leaving them in the mailbox. There was all this. I'll find like all the relevant parts of that, and like we'll just do a catch up over the weekend or something on this because obviously we're like 4 days into it. But this is really the crux of the case. It's part of the motive is that he never ever got over Julie having this affair, and that like torturing her psychologically wasn't enough, terrorizing her psychologically was not enough. Then he just ended up, poisoning her, and he did it for over a period of time. It's so sad. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to get back into it. But where else are you going to see this? This is why we're at the ward. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're dealing with an unaliving case that has nothing to do, there's no like essay involved at all, and that word has been mentioned. It's already been 11 billion times, and we're like 2 minutes in this trial. You know? I can't wait to show you guys the Iowa trial. That one has body cam footage and 911 calls, and it has all the things. That one's an interesting case too. But I was going to watch this trial just on my own. I wasn't sure if I was going to cover it. But part of the reason why I wanted to cover it is because there's been a lot of talk about what's to come with the Idaho 4 and like these, procedural questions. And I think, watching trials is a good way to learn about that kind of stuff. Like the whole thing in the PCA with the co-defendant. I looked those statutes that are listed up, and the way that that Idaho rolls is that you need to ask for what you want at the beginning. I mean, not when as it pertains to certain evidence, like co-defendants, etc. You need to ask for what you want in as far as the discovery goes, right up front, or you're not going to get it. So if she had not filed that the way that she did, with
All right, have a
asking
seat, folks.
for any
Thank you for your
statements made by a
patience, ladies and
potential
gentlemen of the jury. We're going to continue.
co-defendant,
The
and there-
objection's been overruled, so Mr. Jamboys, you can ask your question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
anyway,
So-
if she had if it turns out that there was a co-defendant and she hadn't have put that in the discovery request, then they wouldn't his defense team wouldn't be allowed to have that evidence. So that's why it's there.
Stenographer's notebook.
But anyway,
And
Okay. this is about
it
to
was
get
filled
real
with
uncomfortable.
sketches of penises. Each page had a different illustration.
Here we go.
And do you remember any notes or notations or anything about the penis photos? Or
Not that I
penis
recall, it was
drawings?
just sketches.
And do you have an estimate about how many there were? How many different penis?
The notebook seemed to be filled with them.
Look, he won't even
And
look at
this
Mr.
was within the
Jensen. I
first
wouldn't
year or
look
two
at him
that
either.
after you'd met Mark Jensen.
Yeah, first year or two.
Did you and he ever discuss that notebook?
No,
Do you remember why you'd gone into his office that day?
I do not.
You weren't in there to snoop around, though. You'd just gone in there for some reason. You just don't remember what it was.
No, I don't recall, but no.
What is that thumping?
So you indicated that as you were first getting to know Mark Jensen, you and he would socialize together.
Yes,
Did your families also socialize together?
yes.
What were the kind of things that you and your family would do with him and his family?
Well, in the winter, we'd go up to Door County for a weekend for cross-country skiing. We'd also take weekends for bicycle trips with both families. And of course, we'd have dinner at one another's homes over the years as well.
So over the course of the years, you not only got to know Mark Jensen, you also got to know his wife, Julie.
That's correct.
What was your impression of Julie as a mother and as a person?
No, it's the audio from the
Great on
courtroom.
both
It's
accounts.
driving me
She was
nuts.
a caring and loving mother, and she came across that way in every situation.
Oh, I don't know who's making that.
Now,
but it's
at
very
some point in
disturbing,
1998,
very
you left
disruptive.
Prudential back and you joined Stifel Nicholas. Can you tell us about that?
That's correct. A couple of the top people at repeat your question, please.
So at some point in 1998, you left Prudential back and you joined Stifel Nicholas. Is that true?
No. I went from Beige to Robert Baird.
Oh, okay. So, and then when did you go from Bake to Robert Baird?
How long?
Yeah, how long? When was it that you went from Prudential back to Robert Baird?
Yeah, I think it was around from 87 to 92, 93 that I was at Prudential Beige. And then I went to Baird. And then from 92, 93 to 98, I was at Baird. And after 1998, we opened the Stifel Nicholas office in Racine.
So when you
Far
left
be it for
Prudential
me to
back
boss
to
the
go to
judge
Robert
around,
Baird,
but
did
come
Mark
on,
Jensen
sir,
go
could
with
you
you
not do that, please?
Yeah, not to the same office, but we went at more or less the same time.
to the same company?
That's correct.
And which office did you go to?
I stayed in downtown Milwaukee, and Mark went to Kenosha.
Did you continue to talk to Mark Jensen on a regular basis between 1992 and 1998?
Most likely every day.
So even though your offices were in different cities, you would still talk to each other regularly?
Absolutely.
And then in 1998, at some point, you left Robert Baird and you went to Stifel Nicholas.
Here's what I want to know.
That's correct.
I actually kind of admire
Did
this
Mark
gentleman
Jensen
because
leave
this was
Robert
kind
Baird
of
and go to
early
Stifel
on in
Nicholas
their
at the same time?
work
Yes.
friendship or
And
work
did that alter your
relationship and
office
friendship
situation?
that
Pardon
he
me?
Did that
discovered this
alter your
notepad
office
full of peepees,
situation?
and yet he never
In
brought
what
it
way?
up,
Well,
and he
when
remained
you were
friends
with
with him.
Robert Baird from 1992 to
I don't know that I could
1998,
do
what was
that.
your
If I
office?
discovered
In
something
Milwaukee.
like that,
And when you were with Stifel
I could be
Nicholas from
cool at work,
1998 onward,
but
what
we
was
ain't
your
hanging
office?
out.
In Racine.
Okay, so do you remember when it was in 1998 that you left Robert Baird and went to Stifel Nicholas?
Do I remember when it was?
Yes.
Yes, as in the summer, June or July.
And when you left your Robert Baird and you
Also,
went
if
to
you guys
Stifel
haven't
Nicholas, then you
done
also moved
so,
your
could
office?
you give me a thumbs
That's
up on the
correct.
stream? I'd
And your office was
appreciate it.
moved to the Racine office?
That's correct.
And who else was in the Racine office with you? What other brokers were in the Racine office with you in June of 1998 when you moved there?
I believe when we opened the office, Barry Peterson was there. And I think that's all at the time we opened the office.
Well, you were there. Was Mark Jensen there?
Oh, of course.
So it was you, Barry Peterson, and Mark Jensen that were in that office?
I believe so.
And do you remember when you moved from Robert Baird to Stifel Nicholas, did you meet anybody from St. Louis, from the St. Louis office of Stifel Nicholas?
Yes, there were
Excuse me.
people, I'm not sure how many, that came from St. Louis to help us open up the office.
Was one of those persons a woman by the name of Kelly Labonte?
Yes,
So you met Kelly Labonte when you opened your Racine office?
that's correct.
Now, at some point, did you notice anything about Mark Jensen and Kelly Labonte?
Yeah, they got rather close.
What do you mean by that?
A personal relationship, if you will.
What evidence, what information did you see, or what was it that Mark Jensen said or did that caused you to believe that he was developing a relationship with Kelly Labonte?
He talked about it. He talked about her. He talked about his interest.
What did he tell you about his interest in Kelly Labonte?
Just in talking about it, you could tell it was sincere and
Excuse me.
Well, was it a romantic interest or was it a platonic interest?
no, it became romantic, and I don't know exactly when that occurred.
These
Did you
closed
and Mark
captions
Jensen
are
ever
the
talk
worst. It
about,
became romantic.
the impact this might have on his marriage?
Yes, we did.
Tell us about the conversation that you can recall having between you and Mark Jensen concerning the impact this affair could have on his marriage.
I said, don't do it.
We talked about it, and he had mentioned that he was going to see her on weekends and such. And I just suggested to him that it wasn't a good idea.
Yeah.
And
Understatement
part
of
of
the
the
year.
conversation
Not a
was
good idea.
always the hurt and anger that
Oh,
he felt
did you?
over the
Les Breadstick, good to see
affair
you.
that his wife had
Welcome.
had years earlier. And in a way, he was trying to use that as a justification for what he was doing. And I strongly suggested to him that it wasn't a good idea.
Did you ever discuss with him the issues pertaining to child custody and what would happen if one spouse moved away with the children?
Yes, we did. He was well aware that he could lose custody of the kids, or that he'd have to divide all of his assets in half.
And how did he respond? How did he address that with you, if you can recall?
Well, there wasn't any way to really finalize that discussion. It was just something that was talked about.
Now, throughout the time that you knew Mark Jensen, from 90 or 91 onward, how would you describe his computer skills?
He was very familiar. He had a lot of interesting software, and he was very comfortable with and interested in computers.
You knew how to use a computer too, didn't you?
Pardon me?
You knew how to use a computer as well, didn't you?
Not as well. I didn't know how to use a computer and things like that, but Mark was always a step or two ahead.
Whenever you'd have a problem with the computers, would you talk to Mark about it?
With certain business-related software, we talked about it, yes.
And Mark seemed to know the answer.
Mark had the answers because it was Mark's software.
Uh-oh.
Now, at some point, about the time you were having these conversations with Mark about the pitfalls of divorce, did he start talking to you about Julie's conditions?
Yes, he did.
And what was he telling you about Julie's condition?
A lot of things. He said that she was depressed, that she didn't want to do anything, that she was losing weight. He said that I wouldn't recognize her if I saw her. She had lost so much weight.
Being poisoned with antifreeze is probably not,
So when you
good
heard him
for your
talking
body.
about Julie in this
So
fashion,
it's probably going to have an effect on it. Just
were you
saying.
concerned about Julie?
Yes, of course.
So what, if anything, did you do in response to your concern
Night,
about Julie?
nonstop, Mom. See you tomorrow.
We had not seen them together in a long time because of the ongoing relationship that was developing with Kelly Labonte. So I talked to my wife about it and asked her if she'd give Julie a call and take her out to lunch and maybe cheer her up.
You remember about when that conversation occurred between you and your wife?
I believe it was a week or two before she passed.
And do you know if your wife was ever able to get a hold of Julie?
Oh, yes, she was.
And did she have lunch with Julie?
Yes, she did.
I like
And
9-inch nails
after
post reviews.
Your wife had her lunch with Julie. Did she relate to you what her perceptions of Julie?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustain.
I didn't ask him what they were. I
You're
just
getting
asked,
really close, so.
yeah, I wasn't going to go there, Judge, because
I
Sharon's an
understand,
expert
but
in
you're
this.
really close. You're right on the cliff there.
Yeah,
So
he's
let's-
just trying to
let's ask
help
another
you.
question.
Button it up, counselor.
Now, during this time that Mark was telling you about Julie's condition, did you ever make any observations of things that he was doing on his computer?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
He frequently was on the computer searching for what he told me were drug interactions. He was trying to figure out why her behavior, her demeanor had changed so much and why her health was deteriorating. And so
That's what he was telling you. He told you that he was doing that. He told you he was looking for drug interactions, and that was the reason he gave you for looking for drug interactions.
that's correct.
That's what I said.
Leading.
Would you just rephrase the question, Mr. Chairman?
So the only thing you know about why Mark Jensen was looking at these things is what Mark Jensen told you, correct?
That's
Oh,
correct.
wow. Cool.
So
Close
quite
review.
aside from what Mark Jensen told you about why he was looking at these things, what were the things that you saw on the internet, on his computer when you walked
good
into his
song.
office?
I never really saw anything on the computer. I'd wander into his office. We were close together. We were good friends. I'd maybe sit in a chair across from him, and he'd be working away, and I'd ask him what he was doing, and that was the response I would get, that he was looking for drug interactions.
So how often would you walk into his office and see or hear about him looking at drug interactions on the computer?
As I think back, it was very, very frequently. It was both before her death and after her death.
Now, switching gears to December 3rd, 1998. Were you in the office on December 3rd, 1998?
Yes.
And how big an office was this? How many people altogether were in the office? If you add in all the brokers and all the support personnel, how many people were in the office?
I don't know exactly how many were in there at that time. We had people that would join us and people that would leave, but roughly a half dozen.
So it was a relatively small office.
It was a small office, that's correct.
And on December 3rd, 1998, do you have Do you remember Mark Jensen coming into the office on December 3rd, 1998?
I do not.
You didn't see him on December 3rd, 1998.
That's correct.
On the morning of December 4th, 1998, do you recall having any conversation with Mark Jensen?
Yes, Mark called me and told me that Julie had passed.
Did he indicate to you whether he'd be in the office on December 4th?
Pardon me?
Did he indicate to you whether or not he would be in the office on December 4th?
I don't believe so.
At some point after Julie's death, do you remember having a conversation with Mark Jensen about whether or not Kelly Labonte should be at Julie's wake or at her funeral or come into his residence?
Yes, I did.
Tell the jury about that conversation.
I'm sure it was
Again,
incredibly
we have frequent
awkward.
conversations every day, and he brought up the issue of whether or not it would be appropriate for Kelly to be at the wake. And I don't know if it was the same conversation, but shortly thereabouts, he asked if what my thoughts were if Julie were to move into his home.
Julie or Kelly?
Pardon me, Kelly.
So this was within a matter of days of Julie's death,
That's correct.
and he was asking you about whether his girlfriend should come to his wife's wake and funeral.
That's correct.
And what advice did you give him?
I said it was not a good idea.
And
That's correct.
this conversation about whether or not Kelly should move into his residence, he should have Kelly move into this residence. How much time elapsed between Julie's death and this conversation that you have with Mark Jensen about Kelly moving into his residence?
I can't recall exactly, but it was in very short order. It wasn't long.
More than a week or less than a week?
I can't recall, but maybe a week or two at the most, I would think.
And when he was asking you about whether or not you thought it advisable for Kelly to move into his residence, what was your advice at that time?
Don't do it.
Rather low key, but just that it was not a good idea.
Yeah. You tried to be his friend. We get it. There's only so much you can do. Some people,
Now, you indicated there was a person in your office by the name Barry Peterson. Is that true?
All right.
Yes.
This is where it's about to get
Now,
interesting. Hold on a second. I
did
got to mute this.
Mark
pause
ever
this
have any
for commenting.
conversation with you?
All right. So now we're going to get into why this is where I kind of left off with the trial today, because then I had other stuff I had to do. But we're going to get into a bit of catfishing here. Before there was a term for it back in 1990. I don't think there was a term for catfishing, but that's what Homeboy did. But I can't quite figure out why. But this is because I didn't get to hear the rest of this. So hopefully there's an explanation of why, because otherwise this guy is just, whoo.
About spoofing Barry Peterson?
Yes, he did.
Tell the jury about that.
Barry was single at the time, and apparently had been on a single dating site.
Cement shoes.
And so Mark created a person that he called Warm Irish Eyes. It was supposedly a woman, and he responded to, or started to come on to, Barry Peterson as this woman named Warm Irish Eyes.
So Mark would tell you about this
Yes, he did.
more than one occasion?
Yes.
Did
And
you tell him it wasn't a good
these
idea?
emails that were being sent to Barry Peterson as though they were coming from Warm Irish Eyes, these were emails that were created by Mark Jensen. Is that true?
That's correct.
And did you learn what these emails were, what they contained, or any attachments to these emails?
He would have pictures of penises
Here we
and
go.
would inquire to Barry Peterson whether or not he was that big or things of that nature.
And at the time Barry Peterson was
Poor
receiving
Barry
these
Peterson.
emails, they appeared to be from Warm Irish Eyes,
Yes,
not from Mark Jensen.
that's correct.
During the course of your employment at Stifel Nicholas, did you ever come to know a person by the name of Ed Klug?
Yes.
What can you tell us about Ed Klug?
Yes, tell us
Objection
about.
relevance.
Oh,
I don't know where this is going.
Overruled, go ahead.
What can you tell us about Ed Klug?
I believe Ed was a Robert Baird broker also, and I believe Mark recruited him to come and open an office in Appleton for Stifel Nicholas.
Do you remember after Julie's death ever having a conversation with Ed Klug about any conversations that Ed Klug and Mark Jensen had had before Julie's death?
I do.
So do you remember where that conversation occurred between you and Ed Klug?
it does feel
I believe the
slightly
first time it
grimy,
was on
doesn't
a
it? Cement
plane.
shoes.
We had
It's
both
very,
been in
ooh.
Boston for a meeting, and on the
It's a
way
little
back,
too much.
Ed told me that Mark said he was going to kill her.
Did Ed tell you where that conversation had occurred between him and Mark?
I believe he said it occurred in St. Louis.
So can you tell the jury in a brokerage firm, the sort that you had at Prudential Bach and Robert Baird and Stifel Nicholas, is there a process or a procedure regarding the opening of mail or taking of phone calls?
Yes, they're different as far as opening mail. The front office would receive the mail, and they would always open every piece. Even if it was marked personal, they'd open it to see what was in it. Most of the phone calls also went through the front office, but we did have direct lines, and so a person could contact us directly without going through the front office.
Now, from the time that you first met and worked with Mark Jensen right up through December 3rd, 1998, do you recall Mark Jensen ever complaining, or any member of the front desk ever complaining about receiving harassing phone calls or receiving explicit or pornographic photos at the office?
Repeat the question, please.
No, let's
Did
not.
any support person, anybody that opens the mail, ever indicate to you that they'd received, or complained to Mark Jensen that they'd received or opened in the mail a packet containing pornographic photos?
No.
And something like that would stand out in your mind.
Yes.
So starting with Prudential Bach, no such email, no such photos were in the mail at Prudential Bach or Robert Baird or at Stifel Nicholas at the office. Is that true?
Opened by the front office, that's correct.
And all of the mail was opened by the front office. Isn't that true?
That's the policy.
This has got to be really uncomfortable for this gentleman to
At
be
some point,
testifying about. Bless his
after
heart.
Julie's death, do you recall having a conversation with Mark about, and Mark wanting to get his home computer back from the authorities?
I do.
Tell the jury about that conversation.
Yes, tell the jury about
The
that.
conversation wasn't so much about wanting to get it back. It was a general conversation, and he had expressed concern previously too about them having his computer, and it was a home computer, but he used it for business at home as well, and he wanted to get it back. And on this particular day, it was a Friday afternoon, we were talking about it, and again, it was, they took my home computer, he'd like to have it back. And I mentioned to him that given that they had taken his computer and wouldn't give it back, I was surprised they hadn't come in and taken his office computer as well.
You had
And
that conversation on a Friday afternoon,
Then what
That's
happened?
correct.
and you recall having a conversation with Mark Jensen the next Monday morning?
Yeah, Monday morning, first thing, Mark told me his computer was fried. And
Darn
his
the
work
luck,
computer
you
was
his work
guys.
computer, the computer in the office, said it was fried, and He'd have to call St. Louis and have them send him another.
That is, you talk about some bad luck. That's bad luck.
Did Mark ever talk to you about possible ways in which one could fry the hard drive on a computer?
Yes, years earlier, and I don't remember when, but he had told me when he was working at Baird, there was an individual there that he didn't get along with, and so he took a large magnet and applied it to the hard drive, and the intent was to destroy the data on the hard drive.
I don't know, you guys. This guy just does not strike me as friend material. Like, I don't think I would be friends with him. You know, like, I get that he didn't say all of these things at once.
Did Mark
know,
ever
but-
tell you or talk to you
Yikes.
about what happened when he found Julie dead?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
Yes. What did he tell you?
Well, specifically, did he tell you anything about what he did with the boys when he got home that day?
Yeah, he said it felt as though something wasn't right. And so I believe that he said he had the boys wait, and he went into the house and found that Julie had passed.
So normally he didn't have the children go in the house with him. He had them wait in the car.
Yeah, I would think normally I don't
Objection
know.
leading.
That's
Yeah.
interesting, recliner detective. I need
Well,
to figure out where he
go
would
ahead, Mr.
end up.
Campbell.
I don't want to
Because
tell you what Mr. Nearing, what Mark Jensen said to you. What did Mark Jensen actually say to you about the boys when he came
this
came
is
home
a
that day?
retrial, so
They'd asked him
technically,
to
I'm
wait
not sure how
behind
that
while he
works.
went in to check on Mom.
And that's when, and what happened then
Like
after
where
he
he
had the
was
boys wait in the
before.
car?
Objection. Move to strike. That's not what Mr. Nearing said.
Oh my! All
Overruled.
right,
Go ahead,
lady.
Mr. Jambois.
Once again, please.
What? Just I don't want to put words in your mouth. So what is it that Mark Jensen told you about that? What he did with the boys when he got home that day?
Once more, Bob. I don't understand the question.
I don't either.
Mark Jensen talked to you about coming home that day,
That's
correct?
correct.
And what, if anything, did he tell you about what he did with the boys before he went into the house?
Well, he didn't say specifically what he did with them.
I would ever get to
What
see
I got out of the
babe?
conversation, it was he went into the house to check on Julie before the boys did.
And did he tell you what he, if any, how he had what he did with the boys before he went into the house to check on Julie?
No.
Did he tell you he said that he felt that there might be something wrong with Julie, and that's?
Well, that's correct. He said something didn't feel right. He thought something was amiss.
Hmm.
And so what did he, and he told you he went into the house, and did he tell you what he did with the boys at that point?
That's correct.
What did he do with the boys at that point?
Oh, I have no idea.
Did Mark ever tell you anything about Julie getting sick while he was at the Blueprint
I'll be
in
right back,
November
you
of
guys.
1998?
He did.
Tell the jury what he told you.
Again, I was getting the constant stories about how ill she was and how poorly she was doing. And he mentioned that she had thrown up while he was gone.
At the Blueprint?
That's while he was in St. Louis at the Blueprint. That's correct.
During the time that you knew Mark Jensen from 1990 or 91 through Julie's death in December of 1998, did you ever get the impression that Mark Jensen had ever come to terms with or forgiven Julie for that one affair that she'd had in early 90 or 91?
No, he was seriously hurt and angered. And from very early on, when I first met him, that came across right up until the very end.
So, why is this not showing? Oh, let me make it. There it goes. So basically, what happened, Cement Shoes, is when the when law enforcement, I think it was on the computer. Yes, when they seized that computer, okay, they found a letter written by Julie. And I cannot right now, for the life of me, remember who she wrote the letter to. But basically, the letter said that she suspected that Mark was trying to poison her, that he was still very angry and hurt over the affair, even though he was having one of his own. But I guess through the appeals process, because I think the problem was at the time in 2002, they didn't have the same technology they have now. And I don't think that it could be verified as to who actually authored that letter. Even now it's difficult. Like you can have one computer, right? But you can separate it because each person can have their own login. And so obviously it'll keep track of who's doing what because they're logged in, right? But and then you could do that back then too, but I guess that they didn't have it separated that way. So what ended up happening is because it couldn't be 100% authenticated that Julie Jenson authored that letter on the computer, the federal court of appeals said that that was a contributing factor to his conviction, and it shouldn't have ever been admitted into evidence. And so they granted him a retrial. And so that's why we're here today. So that's what's going on. That was a long explanation for a very short answer. I don't know why it took me so long. Sorry about that.
And he never got over it.
It's like 57 degrees here. And I know that that's not cold for y'all, but for me in the Floridas, it is cold. And I don't appreciate it at all. I don't know why you people
Nothing
out there
for
in the
Who's
north
doing the cross?
who
Go
want
ahead.
to live in penguin land.
Mr. Neering, you said you worked with Mr. Jensen starting sometime in
She's
1990 or
going right in.
1991.
That's correct.
Do you remember what year it was? Whether it was 1990 or 1991?
Yes.
Which one was it?
Oh, I cannot remember. I started there in 87 and we were there a couple of years, before we left.
So you were working with Mark Jensen at that location a couple of years before you went both separated and went to different offices for Baird.
That's correct.
So you had a lot of conversations with Mr. Jensen
Many, many, many. Yes,
about work,
that's correct.
about families,
That's correct.
about children.
Yes.
And it'd be fair to say that during all of those conversations, you didn't write them
Oh dear.
down anywhere.
Not a word.
You weren't taking notes.
Not a word.
You weren't writing them in a journal.
No words in the journal.
You guys were friends. You were just talking.
That's correct.
You worked with Mark at Prudential, you said, for a couple of years. Can you tell us what Mr. Jensen's schedule was? What time he got in each day?
Mark was always a later starter, and he would stay longer. So his schedule, of course, was Monday through Friday. And while I might be there at 7 or 8, Mark might not get there until 9 or 10. And I might leave a little earlier. Mark might stay a little later.
So it'd be fair to say there was no time clock to punch into.
Never.
Mr. Jensen wouldn't come by your office and say, hey, just so you know, I'm here today.
Shmita.
No, he never came by and said, just so you know, I'm here today. But I would know he was there. His office was next to mine. We'd say hello.
Because you talk throughout the day.
That's correct.
So you would know that he would be at work.
Or whatever.
And that was when you were working at Prudential.
That's correct.
Now, at some point, you separated and he went to Baird in Kenosha and you were at Baird in Milwaukee.
That's correct.
And during that time, you continued to talk to each other.
Yes.
On the phone.
recliner. You're right.
Daily,
about work,
mostly.
about family?
That's correct.
Because your families actually got together.
That's correct.
I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit about this time when you were at Baird.
Okay.
When Mr. Jensen was at Baird in Kenosha and you were at Baird in Milwaukee, you would have no information about phone calls he may have received.
I would have no firsthand information. That's correct.
You wouldn't have been talking to the front office staff of the Baird in Kenosha.
Yeah, no, I would not.
You wouldn't be asking them what mail they had opened.
That's correct.
You would have been asking them about what phone calls they had received.
Correct.
That wasn't your office staff.
That's correct.
Your office staff was actually in Milwaukee.
That's correct.
And that was from sometime 1993 to 1998.
That's correct.
Now, you talked a little bit about these computer searches that you say Mr. Jensen conducted, correct?
That's correct.
You didn't see him conduct any searches.
I didn't see the screen, but I saw him conducting the searches.
What you mean by seeing him conducting the searches, you saw his fingers typing on a keyboard.
No, what I mean is he told me that's what he was doing.
I understand what he told you, sir. I'm asking what you actually saw, though. What you saw was his fingers typing on a keyboard.
That's
Oh,
correct.
we're going
You
to
didn't
argue
actually see the
semantics. This
screen.
is a weak argument,
That's
but
correct.
So I
important.
want to talk a little bit about Mr. Jensen's office
Yes, let's
in
do.
Baird
ma'am.
in 1998. Okay?
Mhm.
When you walked in the door, there was like a U-shaped desk that you would see
Hey,
in front of you.
Emily, good to see
At
you.
Baird and Kenosha?
No, at Stifel in 1998.
Please repeat the description.
Thank you. When you walked in the door of the office, there was like a U-shaped desk,
Most
you
of
would
them
see as you
do,
were walking
Heather.
in.
Some of them have
Yes.
regular seats,
and
but
there would
a
be
lot
a
of
monitor
them, that's
on
an
one
old
corner of
school
the desk,
church. That's
that
an
yes?
old school
Correct, yes.
courtroom.
and there would be a monitor on a second corner.
But the
Yes.
ones
He actually
in
had two
Virginia
monitors.
where
Yes,
And
for
it'd
two
be-
people.
the DEP
Thank you.
trial was
And
at,
it
the
would be
DEP
fair to
trial,
say that
they
as you
had
walked in
pews
the
like
door, you could
this.
see the monitors.
That's correct.
Now, you said that when you talked to Mr. Jensen, you actually sat across from his desk.
That's correct.
And it was when you were sitting across from his desk that you couldn't see the monitors.
I'd sit across from him, or he had a credenza. There was the desk in front, and then chairs directly opposite. And off to the side was a long credenza, maybe 6 or 8 feet long. So a lot of times I'd wander in, as Mark did in my office, and stop next to his desk, aside it, and lean onto the credenza. So it was both, sitting across from him and sitting right next to him, standing right next to him, leaning up against the credenza.
So what I asked, though, is when you were sitting across from him at those chairs, you couldn't see the monitors.
No, I never saw the monitor on any of the searches.
So as he was doing all of these searches that he was telling you about drug interactions, you never looked at the monitor.
That's correct.
And
Do
what
you
he
know
said
Mr.
to you was
Jensen
that
to
he
be a
was
liar?
Concerned about Julie's change in behavior. Correct?
Yes,
And he was concerned, and he expressed that concern to you.
yes, he did.
And he was concerned because she wasn't eating the same.
That's what he said.
And he was concerned, and what he said to you was that she was losing weight
That's correct.
and that she would lock herself in the bedroom.
I don't think I said that yet, but he did.
He told you that.
Yes.
An additional concern he expressed to you was that she didn't want to do anything.
That's correct.
And she seemed depressed.
Pardon me?
And that she seemed depressed.
That's correct.
Now, in 1998, you and Mr. Jensen had been friends for 7 years.
Okay.
I just want to get through
Sounds about
Okay.
right. That's correct.
this because
what
I
you
want to
testified to. I'm
get
just
to.
putting
Yeah, I
it
don't
out
have
there.
I didn't have a
girlfriends.
number, but you're right. You did
She's
that. Lena.
supposed to testify.
And
Two.
during that time, you talked about a lot of things,
We did
personal things,
sometimes.
including Julie Jenson's affair
Yes,
and how that hurt Mr. Jensen
that's correct.
and how he was upset about it.
Yes.
I think your testimony was he was angry about it.
And I said hurt, very hurt and angry.
And he confided in you about those things.
Yes,
And when he was talking about his wife in 1998, he was confiding in you about what he saw.
that's correct.
So when Mr. Jensen talked to you about looking up drug interactions, I think you said he did it both before Ms. Jensen's passing and after her passing.
That's correct.
And that was on the work computer.
That's correct.
And did he talk to you about the prescription medication she had been prescribed by a doctor?
Specific ones?
Yes.
Not that I ever recall.
Did he talk to you about his concern about her taking an unusual amount of aspirin?
No,
Did he talk to you at all about antidepressants?
no.
I want to talk to you a little bit about these computers.
Okay.
You just told this jury that you had a conversation with Mr. Jensen
You're already
some
combative,
point
man. Calm down.
about both his home and work computers.
Yes,
And I think you said it was on a Friday.
that's correct.
What day was that?
I have no idea.
What month was that?
I do not remember.
What year was that?
Uh, I don't recall. I'm sorry.
And at that time, Mr. Jensen had, when he worked at Stifel, he had actually 2 computers in his office
Yeah, he had a personal computer and a company computer.
and used his personal and company computer for work.
That's correct.
And he had those computers through the time that he was arrested in this case.
Yes,
And you actually had information that his work computer had been sent to St. Louis.
you've kind of jumped ahead on the timeline.
I have jumped ahead on the timeline. That's fair. So when you spoke to Mr. Jensen about this damage to his work computer, he advised you that he had sent it to St. Louis.
That's correct.
And it's fair to say that working for a stock brokerage firm, there's certain protocols you have to follow.
There are departments that take care of different things. That's correct.
And because you're dealing with stocks and trading and people's personal information and money, there's
Mhm.
specific protocols you have to follow.
Yes,
And that's why people at the front desk open the mail,
yes,
because you need to make sure that you're following whatever protocols have been set by the company.
that's correct.
And the main location for most of the departments for Stifel Nicholas, am I saying that right, sir?
Yes,
Is in St. Louis.
that's the home office.
So that's where a lot of the things happen, is at the home office.
That's correct. We're just a small branch.
In fact, you said you had like a half a dozen people working there.
That's right.
So if something was to happen with a work computer, it would be sent to St. Louis.
Right. Any kind of issues that we would have like that were resolved
By St. Louis.
by St. Louis.
Do you remember in 2002, everyone in Stifel Nicholas getting brand new work computers?
I don't remember the year, but there was a time when everybody got an update. That's correct.
Another thing that the home office can do is conduct audits on computers.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there, ma'am. I understand why you are going down this line of questioning, because you do need to, do some damage control. I mean, all the PP talk was a lot, and frankly, probably unsettling to many jurors, as it was to my audience. But the thing is, this has been a long time, and I'm not 100% in love with your tone, the way that you're sort of coming at this gentleman. He is clear from his demeanor on the stand that he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to snitch out his friend. But at the end of the day, he had valuable information. He was close to him. They were friends, right? So if he's testifying that his friend told him that when he was asked, that he was doing searches on the internets for drug interactions, you're questioning the veracity of that. But what you're unintentionally doing is questioning the credibility of your client since it was your client who told him that in the first place?
I don't know anything about that.
Do you know anything about the fact that they can remotely access your computer and see what you're doing?
I assumed as much, but back then I'm not so sure. In fact, I would say no, I didn't think that was occurring.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do that in 1998. Who in here, or even into maybe 2002, maybe. But definitely not 1998. And what is are you going to question him about this catfishing situation, ma'am? Because why he would do that to that guy, I can't figure out. Like, what was the purpose of that?
Sir, you testified previously
What
in
that
this
guy
case,
do
correct?
to you?
Yes, I did.
And that was in January of 2008.
You have to help me with the date. I do not remember when it was.
Do you remember it being early January 2008?
If you say so, I do not remember.
That's fair. You were asked on page 82.
I think I had a gateway back then, Heather.
Line 21. And on occasion will conduct audits, correct? And your answer was yes.
I'm not sure of the context. The branch would be audited. That people would come in and they'd go through stuff. Your earlier question was about, did I think they could see everything we were doing on our computers? And I believe those are two different issues.
That's fair. I didn't ask him. I said
Uh-oh. What's going on?
he didn't know the exact date.
Okay.
So you knew that they did conduct audits, though, of computers and other business activity.
They would come in and make sure records were kept properly. That,
That's different than remote,
people
ma'am.
were
So I don't know what your point
not gaining
is.
access to records that they shouldn't gain access to and things of that nature. I don't believe they would have ever looked at individual computers or how they were used or what was on them. Back then, it was kind of in the early stages and we didn't have the oversight that we had today or at the
I mean,
end.
surely if they
On
had
page
been,
117.
hold on a minute. Let's pause this because I think she's
I don't know
forgetting
what
this
line
part
25
right here. So when they looked at his work computer, since this seems to be a source of contention for this attorney, they recovered. I can't remember what she said or what the prosecutor said about the number of images. Excuse me, let me make this very clear. Pornographic images on his work computer. Something tells me that if they were able to conduct remote audits, that would have been an issue. And it would have been something that probably would have been handled by HR. And he probably would have been told to stop. So therefore would not have been found in 2002 or any other time when they took his work computer. Right? 2,000 images. I thought that's what they said Vincent's missing here, but I didn't want to, you know how I be with over exaggerating numbers, like 11 billion, 50, 1100 and stuff like that. So yeah, this is not, I wouldn't go down this road if I were you, ma'am, but okay.
Page 117.
19, 118, 17, 16. Line 16. When asked about system checks from the home office, you received a question. Did that ever happen to your knowledge in your office?
I had three
Answer.
kids by
You mean a system
1998
check
and
on
never did sit
computers?
down either.
Question.
I remember those
Answer.
days.
A system check by the
Yes,
home office?
Emily.
Question. Yes. Answer. They routinely monitor various things.
I guess I would stand by what I said today as opposed to,
As opposed to 2008, which
I'm
was,
not sure what I was thinking then or what I meant.
That's fair, sir. Do you still work for Stifel Nicholas?
No, I retired 9 years ago.
So you haven't had any system checks done on your computer in the last 9 years?
Well, nowadays you never know.
After Julie Jenson passed away, you spoke to law enforcement.
All right,
That's
I'll be
correct.
right back. I
And that
gotta
wasn't
let Mr.
actually
out.
until 2000.
You guys behave because I'll be in chat.
Three?
But Molson, man, you're in charge. And Shmita, if you're here, you're in charge too.
Does that sound right?
Again, as I reread my testimony from the last trial, I couldn't get my head around the dates. So if that's when I saw him or that's when I contacted them, that's correct. But I can't sit here and tell you it was in 2003 in this month. I just don't, it's just not in my head.
That sounds wrong because it is wrong. It was March 22nd, 2002. that you
Okay,
spoke
yeah,
to
whenever
law
it was,
enforcement.
I don't remember.
You didn't contact anyone in law enforcement in 1998.
I did not.
You didn't contact anyone in law enforcement in 1999.
No, I did not.
You didn't contact anyone in law enforcement in 2000.
No, I believe the first contact was after Mark was arrested. I think I contacted Paul Ratzberg, Detective
Yeah.
Ratzberg.
And Mr. Jensen was arrested in 2002.
Okay.
And that's when you then contacted
I
Detective Ratzberg.
contacted him.
And he wanted to talk to you about what you knew about the Jensens
That's correct.
and what you knew about Mark Jensen,
That's correct.
because you had worked for him so long.
That's correct.
You had had hundreds of conversations.
Yes.
You guys were friends.
Yes.
He had confided in you.
Yes.
And Detective Ratzberg wanted that information.
Yes.
He asked you questions,
He did.
and you answered those questions.
That's correct.
And you answered those questions truthfully.
That's correct.
And as Detective Ratzberg was asking you questions and you were answering those questions truthfully, Detective Ratzberg was taking notes.
That's correct.
Notes on what you said.
That's correct.
And if he was concerned about something you said or unclear, he would ask you to clarify it.
Yes.
After you spoke to Detective Ratzberg, you wrote a written statement.
Okay.
Do you remember writing out a statement after you talked to Detective Ratzberg?
I can't remember if I wrote them or if he wrote them and I signed them, but
Let's find out.
things were put in writing.
Madam Clerk, can I have an exhibit sticker? Mr. Herring, I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 16. Do you recognize that?
Looks like a report with my initials at the bottom.
So since I don't. Or Detective Ratzberg, is that your handwriting or Detective Ratzberg?
I don't write in cursive. I print, and this is printed, but I'm not sure it's my handwriting. It is my initials at the bottom.
At the bottom of each page, there's actually a spot where you initial.
That's correct.
And that would have been after reviewing and or writing this statement.
That's correct. Yeah, is there a date on this? Well, too. Okay.
And as you and I just both found, it was March 22nd.
Okay.
Now, sir, you also testified previously in this case,
Yes,
2 times.
if you say so.
I do say so. Do you remember testifying 2 times?
There's a lot of it I don't remember. So
A lot you just can't remember.
that's correct.
One of the times was on August 28th of 2007, and the other ones were, which we just talked about, was January 9th to January 10th of 2008.
Okay.
And when you testified on those days, you actually took the stand, correct?
I remember doing that.
Much like you are doing it today.
That's correct.
You raised your right hand.
Yes, I did.
You swore to tell the truth,
Yes,
and you told the truth.
that's correct.
You were asked questions by Attorney Jamboys,
That's correct.
and you answered those questions.
I did.
You were also asked questions by defense counsel, not
did.
me,
I did. Or yes, I answered them.
and you answered them truthfully.
That's correct.
I'm going to talk to you about some of the statements that you just said today for the first time.
Okay.
You testified today that in 1990 or 1991, you walked into Mark Jensen's office and flipped through a journal,
Hey, what?
like a stenographer notepad, I think you said.
That's correct.
So I want to make sure I understand what happened on that day.
Okay.
You go to Mark Jensen's office.
Mhm.
He's not there.
That's correct.
And he's not someone you've known for a long time at that point.
That's correct.
It's when you worked at Prudential,
That's correct.
and he's not there. So instead of walking out of the office, you go inside the office
That's correct.
and you look around.
No.
You don't look around. You don't see a notebook.
And I knew you would ask me why I was there.
So my question is did you see a notebook?
I saw a notebook.
And after you saw that notebook, you opened that notebook.
That's correct.
And your testimony today is in a coworker's office that wasn't present, you started to flip through his notebook.
That's correct.
You never told Detective Ratzberger that.
I believe I did.
You believe you told Detective Ratzberg that you saw this notebook?
Absolutely.
Sir, I'm going to show you Exhibit 16, which we read in your statement. Can you please take the time to review this and stop when you get to the part that you found a notebook of penis sketches?
I do believe I reviewed this, a copy of it that was texted to me, and you're right, it isn't in there, but I know that I told him.
Objection, Your Honor. The counsel is interrupting the witness while he's answering. She's got to wait for him to finish answering the question before she starts speaking.
Give him a chance to finish.
I thought he had finished it.
I understand. Give him a chance to finish.
And sir, you also had a chance, I think you testified to review the transcripts of your testimony from the last trials.
I did.
You didn't
Hold on
testify
a
to this
second.
notebook of penis sketches.
I'm curious. What? So does the manner in which he found these drawings, does that negate the drawings? I don't understand what you're trying to do here. That's what it was, recliner detective. Thank you. It's been a while since I remember watching this on like Dateline or 2020, maybe even 48 Hours. Hell, probably all three, to be honest. And it's been a minute. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you very much. So the way that she's going at him, I don't particularly care for. Like, I understand. Exactly, Michelle. Like, because he's nosy, the drawings don't matter. Like, that's ridiculous. That's preposterous. And the thing of it is, this is what's interesting. I don't think that this is the original prosecutor. In fact, I'm almost positive that it's not. But when you're preparing for a trial, okay, when you would probably go back over things, and if the detective did not record the statement, but simply took notes, you don't know what it was that he did or did not tell the detective. Maybe he did tell the detective that. And maybe he forgot to put it in his statement, for Pete's sake. I mean, you're showing that I just don't like the way that she's going at this guy at all, because it's not coming across good. And I doubt it's coming across well to the jury either. And it's really, she's not accomplishing what I think she's trying to accomplish, which is to impeach his testimony, as if he would just make up this notebook full of wieners, for Pete's sake.
Then either, did you?
I don't think so.
I want want to ask you a few questions about this.
Who you guys
Peterson
almost had a
spoofing
blocking
email
situation.
that you testified about.
Okay.
The
You
earbuds were
testified that
precariously
Mr.
leaned up against
Jensen
the screen of the
advised
phone.
you
You know that's
that
never
he
good.
created an email to spoof a coworker.
That's accurate.
And was this when you guys were at Stifel Nicholas
Yes.
in 1998?
This was more like 2001, 2002.
Oh,
So at that point,
That's
who was
it.
the manager of the Stifel
let me
Nicholas
highlight
office?
this because
Mark
that's
was.
important.
Mr. Jensen was the manager.
Mr. Jensen was.
And
That's what
after
it
Mr.
was.
Jensen told you that
Thank
he
you,
spoofed
minor
an
detective.
employee, you went to St. Louis? Did you tell them about what the manager of the office was doing to an employee?
Objection, there's two questions and she didn't allow him to answer the first question
I
before.
think
she
it's time for our morning break. That's what I think. So we'll continue, folks. Go in the back, relax.
Uh-oh. He said go in the back and relax. Let me just
Minutes if you
Eduardo.
can. Thank you.
To come up with Global Marine.
I cannot remember.
see why I don't be doing this. I can't ever be
Mr.
in
Naring,
charge
you're
of the
still under
skipping.
oath, and we will continue with the cross-examination with that Attorney Krause. You could start.
Thank you. Mr. Nerin, I asked a really bad question when we ended there, so I'm going to rephrase it.
Okay.
In
Don't be trying to
1998,
make
Mark
up to the
Jensen was
jury
the
now because
manager
you're
of
rude.
Stifel Nicholas.
Yes, he was.
And you had testified on direct about some
Back hurts.
spoofing of Barry Peterson.
Yes.
So he would be considered an employee of Mark Jensen or
Pardon me?
someone he supervised.
Yes, he was the manager at the time.
So he supervised Barry Peterson.
That's correct.
He supervised you.
That's correct.
And at any point when Mark Jensen told you about the spoofing, did you contact St. Louis and advise them about what this manager was doing to someone he supervised?
No, I did not.
And when you talked to Detective Ratzberg, your testimony is you told him about the spoofing?
I know that I did.
And you never testified about any of this in your previous trial testimony.
I cannot remember, but if I didn't, I didn't.
You had a chance to review your previous testimony transcripts.
It was over 100 pages. If I didn't, I didn't.
Another conversation you talked to this jury about was a conversation that Mark Jensen had with you about, it sounded like divorce, right?
Okay.
Oh,
It was
thank
after
you,
you
Emily.
learned about the
Welcome.
affair with
Welcome
Kelly
to the
Labonte,
That's
Boogaloo.
correct.
and you told him about possible ramifications.
Thank you for joining.
We discussed them.
And what you told the jury today was that the possible ramifications you talked about was child custody and splitting assets.
Correct.
Now, you also testified again, January of 2008, and you were asked the question.
Counsel, what transcript?
Thank you.
Page number?
It's page 15.
Why does she always say
I
thank
believe it's
you?
the first day. Let me just double check.
9.
Oh, thank you, Lost Breadstick. I did not
Okay, do you
know
which
that.
date? Because there were
The
two.
10th.
The 10th.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, that
What
would
page
make
you on?
sense though still because like you would
Well, I
want
was on the
to
page. Now I got to find it.
go over it again and look through the files and all
Page
that stuff
15.
preparing. Like I don't think this is this big huge deal that she's trying to make it as if this notebook is not a thing. And that because he's a little bit of a nosy
The
Parker,
fourth line.
that, that somehow, oh, the woman in the suit behind him, like that they're focusing on right now, that's his wife. Wow, that's so cute.
Page 15, line 4.
And what exactly, and the question was, and what exactly did you tell him about the ramifications? And your answer was, we talked about custody of the kids, possibilities of one spouse moving away, and things like that. Next question. Did you tell him that it was a difficult position to be in terms of divorce? Yes. I'm going to go down to the next question. Did you ever talk to him, or did he ever talk to you about the financial ramifications, like splitting money and the assets, splitting the assets? And your answer was no. I don't believe that was an issue for him. That was your testimony in 2008.
We discussed this topic on many occasions.
I
and-
understand that, sir. My question was, that was your testimony in 2008.
Okay.
I mean, what do you want him to say?
No, you testified that you knew Mark and Julie Jenson
Yes, I
as
did.
friends.
Yes.
You knew Julie Jenson was from the Kenosha area?
I'm not sure I knew that.
Didn't know that she had lived there her entire life,
That's correct.
or that her brother lived just a few miles away?
I knew family was in the area, but I didn't know she was born and raised there.
I mean, he didn't know her whole life history. And
Another conversation you talked about and talked to this jury about was a conversation you had with Mark Jensen about Kelly Labonte after Miss Jensen's death. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that.
okay.
Your testimony was
At
that Mark
him or to
Jensen
him?
asked 1 or 2 weeks after Julie Jenson passed if Kelly Labonte should move into the family home.
That's correct.
And you told him that wouldn't be a good idea.
Yes, I did.
You never told Detective Ratsberg about this conversation about Kelly Labonte.
I cannot remember.
In fact, he specifically asked you about Kelly Labonte and Mark Jensen's relationship with her. And in fact, when she moved to Kenosha, but at no point did you tell him that Mark Jensen asked if Kelly Labonte should move into the house 1 to 2 weeks after Julie Jenson's death.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Did you tell him that?
Gosh, there are so many facets to this case. I don't think I touched on absolutely everything every time I sat down to speak with him.
And you didn't testify to that last time in January of 2008,
Testified to what?
the 2 weeks after Julie Jenson's death
Oh,
conversation.
it was shortly after the death. That's correct.
But you didn't testify to it previously.
I can't remember what I testified to.
You read the transcript, sir.
It was over 100. It was over 100 pages. Yeah, I read it all, but just in one ear and out the other. There's so much.
I mean, yeah, like, come on. People forget stuff, man. Like,
You were aware that in
oh, dear.
January of 1999, Kelly Labonte was still married and living outside the state of Wisconsin.
I was.
So I want to go back to this friendship you had with the Jensens. I think you
Oh,
said it
here we
developed
go.
in 1990, 1991,
That's correct.
and you would do things as a family
That's correct.
with the Jensens family,
Yes.
cross-country skiing.
I know, Heather,
Yes.
it's so
Camping.
You can't be
Camping,
relying on
bicycle
this
trips, and
closed
like camping.
caption.
Was it like Door County?
It's
or
not
was it
we
Or
stayed in
accurate.
hotels.
And when you stayed in these hotels, did you find babysitters for your children so you could go to strip clubs?
Oh, God, here we go.
No,
Probably.
we did not.
That wasn't something your families did.
No.
And in 1990, when do you think the last trip you took to Door County was?
Sorry, I cannot help you with that. I don't know.
It wasn't until maybe July, August of
Hey, guys, if you
1998
haven't done so
that
already,
you
would you
stopped
give me a
having
thumbs
these
up
family
on the
trips
stream? I would
together.
really
correct.
appreciate it.
And that's because you found out about Mark's affair with Kelly Labonte.
Yes,
And you didn't want to do things as a family.
that's correct.
And so between the time that you stopped doing anything with the Jensens and Miss Jensen's funeral, the only time you had any conversation I'm sorry, the only time you had any conversation was with Miss Jensen was sometime in October of 1998. I think you took a bike trip with your wife.
I do remember reading that. Oh, but that's correct. I didn't see much of her.
You might have remembered reading it. I'm asking if you actually remember it, though.
I remember it when I read it, but you know what? Prior to reading it, that
You
was
didn't
not a
remember.
part of my memory.
So sometime in October of 1998, you and your wife were on bikes,
That's correct.
and you stopped by the Jensen home,
Yes,
and you saw Julie Jenson,
that's correct.
and you saw Mark Jensen.
Thank
correct.
you, Emily.
And after that time, you didn't have any other conversation with Julie
thank
Jensen.
you all.
That's correct.
You didn't see
Hey,
Julie Jensen
do
again.
you
did
guys
not.
want me to stream this in the morning too?
You didn't call her on the phone and say, hey, I hear you're a little down?
I did not. I never talked to her by myself.
You did know, because Mr. Jensen shared it with you, that Julie Jenson had this affair
Yes,
sometime in 1990, 1991,
that's correct.
and that she had filed for divorce.
Yes,
And at that time, David Jensen was a small child.
yes.
During the course of this friendship with Mr. Jensen, he did talk to you about concerns about the harassment of his wife and himself.
I couldn't hear all of that.
During the years that you were friends and co-workers with Mr. Jensen, he did talk to you about the harassment of himself and Julie Jenson.
Yes, he did.
He did talk to you about phone calls made to the Jensen home.
All
That's
right,
correct.
I can do
He
that.
also talked to you about photographs left at the Jensen home.
And on his work vehicles, that's correct.
So he told you about the photograph on his work vehicle.
That's correct.
And you said that this was a small office.
No
The Prudential
problem,
Beige
Allie.
office was huge, and I believe there were pictures left. We had 80 brokers. There were pictures left at that time, I
Get you
believe.
some sleep.
But the Baird office obviously was small, and I didn't work there. The Stiefel office was very small, and I did work there.
So the Baird office that he was at, you were not at.
That's correct.
So, sorry.
I
Although
probably
he had
can't.
told you about
I
it, you
should-
weren't there. When
I
he
can't
called.
do it
That's
tomorrow
right.
morning. I forgot I got something to do. But if you guys are wanting me to do it, let's see what's tomorrow. Wednesday. Yeah, I have stuff to do on Wednesday, but I can do it Thursday and Friday.
Mr. Nerin, you've been a stockbroker for a long time before you retired.
Yes,
It'd be fair to say that companies have specific symbols that they use, like McDonald's is MCD
yes.
and Citicorp is CCI.
I think it's just C, or it was 9 years ago.
It might have changed now.
You never know.
HD is Home Depot.
Correct.
WMT is Walmart.
Okay, come on, let's get on with
DE
it.
is Deere and Company.
Nothing runs like a deer.
Right. That's what my stepdad says. PDE is Pride Petroleum.
Yes,
And those are symbols that stockbrokers use when talking about companies.
yeah. The prices show up on the tape that you see, the scroll. And when we want to look up information,
Thank you,
on our work
Tony, for
computers, we use those
understanding. I
So if
want
I
to.
put in
I got
Google,
stuff I got to finish up.
let's say GLM, it's going to come up with Global Marine.
maybe not Google per se, but if it's a financial site, it would.
It might show me that there is something associated with that. I'd have to click on it to get what it was associated with.
Yep.
And those are BBY is Best Buy.
Correct.
And those are pretty common symbols that stockbrokers know.
Yes.
Can you imagine if you being her kid, how
there
she
a
must spoil
security
you? And now I
industry
kind of know what my
association for
kids feel
stockbrokers?
like. No, just
Yes.
kidding. I don't talk
And
to
they
my. I
sometimes
don't.
have dinners.
I mean, I can grill if I have to, but I
Or meetings?
try not to.
I don't know what
Well, see, there you go.
organization you're talking about in particular.
Wednesday's no good
but,
for any of us, so we'll just do it
our
Thursday.
company had dinners. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
I did not know that, but your company
Well,
had
like the blueprint you referenced.
so that would be some type of a meeting that would be had.
That's correct.
Oh, thank you,
You testified
Michelle.
on when I was asking you some questions about
It
schedules.
feels
that
like
Mr.
a
Jensen
quiz
was
a
kind
little
of
bit,
later
breadstick,
morning,
last
later at night kind
breadstick.
of worker.
It's-
You were an early morning, leave at a normal time worker.
That's correct.
And that was pretty consistent over the years.
Her tone
Yes.
is
It'd be fair to say
Just
you weren't checking him in and checking him out.
hostile.
We all worked whenever we wanted to. That's correct.
If he was going to be late, he might call or he might not.
He would not call.
He would not call.
He's testifying for the state.
You testified on direct that Mr. Jensen did not come into the office on December 2nd. Is it that you just didn't see him? I just want to
He
clarify.
actually said he
You
didn't
see
know
him
or
he
couldn't
didn't
remember,
come in?
I believe was his
Sorry,
actual
December 3rd is what I
testimony.
meant. Thank
You
you.
had me confused there.
I was
That's
confused
correct.
too, sir.
That I didn't see him or he didn't come in. Are you asking if there's a difference there?
Yes.
I don't think he ever came in. or I
This is
didn't
the way
see him.
my dad
So,
used to ask questions,
maybe he
but you
came in
guys
and
will
I didn't
all
see
be
him, but his
happy to
office
know
is
I
right by
never
mine,
folded
and
under
that wasn't the type
questioning.
of relationship we had.
I wish I could say the same for my
So it's
sister.
possible he would
Bless
have
her
come
heart.
in and you wouldn't have seen him. You might have been in a meeting.
It's not possible. Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
You might have been on the phone.
Sure, he might have been in the
okay.
can. Who knows?
I'm just asking, sir. Is it possible that you could have been on the phone at some
No
point during
worries,
the
Yeah,
day?
babe.
what-
Yes,
therefore I
it's a
wouldn't have known
long
that he
day. It's been a long day for me
That's not
too, and
possible.
I honestly
You
don't
did
even know.
tell
I have
talk
the
to
whole
Detective
wrong state
Ratsberger
on the
about
freaking
whether
thumbnail.
Mr. Jensen came in on December 3rd.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
We talked about so many things. No, I don't remember speaking with him specifically about it.
Do you remember telling him that Mr. Jensen did call you and talk to you about whether he would be in?
On December 3rd?
Yes.
She's been set.
I do
Yeah,
not
she
recall
has
that.
been spicy
Do you
this
remember
whole
telling
time.
him
She
that
really
Mark
has.
Jensen told
The
you
whole
he would
trial.
be in late or
She
not
was
at all?
spicy in
do
the
not.
pre-trial.
Recall telling him that.
She's just spicy.
It'd also be fair to say that some stockbroker business happens outside of the office.
Yes, we see people outside office. That's correct.
You meet clients.
Right.
Go out for lunch.
Right.
Go out for dinners.
Yes.
Business is done at those points.
Yes.
Is there a point to this, counselor? Are we going to touch on a point? Like, I don't get this line of questioning.
You said you spoke to Mr. Jensen on December 4th,
The day after, that's correct.
and that's when he called to tell you that his wife had passed away.
That's correct.
And he told you he thought it was a drug interaction.
As I sit here, I don't remember what he told me, but he did tell me that she had passed, and I was blown away.
He told you that she had recently seen a doctor for depression
Yes.
and been prescribed medication.
Yes.
You were asked a couple questions about Ed Klug, another stockbroker at Stifel Nicholas.
Okay.
You weren't friends with Mr. Klug at the time that you were working at Stifel Nicholas.
Was I friends
In
with him?
1998. I should be more clear about the timing, sir.
No, I don't think I knew him before they opened the Appleton office.
And at some point, Mr. Jensen was charged with the crime in this case,
With what?
with first-degree intentional homicide. You know he was arrested and charged.
That's correct.
And at some point, you actually went and searched for Mr. Klug at a conference.
That's correct. Oh, correct.
And you were searching for Mr. Klug because you had heard rumors about what he had said. Mark Jensen told him.
That's correct.
And this was a conference that you both had attended.
Yes.
And that was in 2006.
Yes.
And he told you that at this Blueprint conference, they had both been drinking.
Yes.
And that's when they had this conversation. That
It does
Mr.
sound
Klug
like
says
it could
that
be.
Mr. Jensen admitted.
That's where I'm at right
Said
now
something
in the
about killing his
Floridas.
wife.
And yes, it absolutely does sound like it
That's
seemed
correct.
like it could be a Florida case.
Do you remember testifying in 2007 that the conversation between Ed Klug and Mark Jensen, Ed Klug said it happened when opening the Appleton office?
Yeah. When I read the transcript review and I read that, I said I thought Ed Klug had told Mark in Appleton. That wasn't the way I remember it today. I remember Ed telling me that
Uh-oh. What happened?
Mark told him that in St. Louis. So there's a discrepancy there. But
So in
anyhow,
2006, you spoke to Mr. Klug, right?
yes,
At this conference
yes,
about this conversation between him and Mr. Jensen.
that's correct.
And a year later, you testified at a hearing.
Yes,
And during that testimony, you said that the conversation happened when they were both in Appleton.
that's correct.
During the conversation, he also told you that other people were present when Ed Klug and Mark Jensen were speaking.
Excuse me, counsel, what page? Transcript here?
I'm cross-examining. I'm not on a transcript.
Well, you can't have a personal conversation between the lawyers here.
Oh,
I do have
dear.
some job here.
I'm not quoting from a transcript, Judge.
All right,
Good to know.
ask a question.
Once again, please.
Oh, yes. I have to remember what the question was. During the conversation that Ed Klug had with Mark Jensen, that he then told you about, Ed Klug said there were other people present.
Okay, that's correct.
It really is the new Florida lately. I mean, they are really,
Now, 2006
Wisconsin's
was
really
the
out
only
here
time you talked to Ed
just
Klug
really trying to give
about this
Florida
case.
a run for its
Yeah,
money.
when I read
Reals for
the
reals.
transcript, I couldn't believe how many times I saw Ed Klug.
You actually talked to him a lot after
It
2006.
appears that way, and I don't remember those conversations, but it appears that I did,
You talked to him after you testified in 2007.
most likely. In fact, until I read the transcripts, and I'd completely forgotten about the airplane trip from Boston with Ed Klug completely. That was just gone from my mind. So, yeah, I talked to Ed a number of times.
And you talked to him after his testimony in 2007.
Probably, yes.
Just a few more questions, sir.
How many more questions? You're
I'm going to
getting
talk
on
to you
my
a little bit about the
nerves.
conversations you had with Mark Jensen in November of 1998, if you remember them. Okay.
Okay.
As a result of the conversation you had with Mr. Jensen, you asked your wife to go out to dinner or lunch with Julie Jenson,
That's correct.
and she did that.
Yes, she did.
The conversation you had with Mr. Jensen is that Julie Jenson was crying regularly
Yes.
and that she was withdrawn,
That she was withdrawn. Yes,
and he was concerned about that.
that's correct. Correct.
That she was locking herself in her room,
Yes.
that she was losing weight,
Yes.
and that she was miserable.
Yes.
He told you he wanted her to see a doctor.
Yes, he did.
She did not want to see a doctor.
That's correct.
He told you he was encouraging her to go to the doctor.
I think I testified last time that he said the only way he could get her to a doctor, and these are his words, was that if he duct taped her up and threw her in the car. So yeah, he wanted her to go. He said he wanted her to go.
And she didn't want to go.
Objection, calls for speculation as to what she did or did not want to do.
Sustained.
Judge, it was only based upon his answer.
Said move on.
Yeah, he said move on, lady.
He told you that Julie was afraid of ending up like her mother.
Yes.
And you knew her mother had some medical issues.
Yeah, I believe it was alcoholism.
And Julie feared being hospitalized
I
like
don't know
her
if
mother.
she did, but that's what Mark said.
That's what Mark told you.
That's correct.
And that was in November of 1998.
Sounds right.
So now we're listening to Mark. Okay, now Mark is telling the truth. Gotcha. All right.
He also talked to you about her previous treatment for depression.
I can't.
Perhaps.
You don't specifically remember.
I don't.
So you talked a little bit about this computer that Mr. Jensen said he tried to fry with a large magnet.
Yes.
You know that you can't fry a computer with a large magnet, correct?
I didn't say it. He said it. I don't know if you can or you can't. Never tried it.
Okay. You also testified that Mr. Jensen was kind of the person you went to if you had issues with the computer software.
Yeah, not so much issues, but just in helping to use the various features.
And that was the software that was on the computer for your work.
No, it was a software that was on his personal computer.
Okay. Did
That
you
was
use?
work oriented.
It was work oriented.
Yes.
And did you use that software?
Yeah, I had a laptop and used it as well.
It wasn't about like if your computer died, he would come in and fix
No.
it.
It was just about utilizing the software.
He wasn't the IT tech of Stifel Nicholas.
No, he was not.
Just so you guys know, the thumbnail has been changed. It was really bothering me this entire time. I cannot focus, so it's fixed now. I feel much better. I like when he says,
Nothing further. Thank you, sir.
thank
Redirect,
goodness.
Mr. Jambois.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, on cross, defense counsel is asking you about
Let's get to,
Mark's conversations
I
with
know
you
why,
about
because I had
Julie,
2 tabs open. Calm down.
suggesting
All
that
right,
he
let's
was
get to what's her
actually
name. Let's get to the
communicating
girlfriend.
real-
That's who I want to watch.
It's one of the brokers, Dan Exner. Second floor. Email coming in. So she would work.
You just remain standing, raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. To the judge.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you're swearing me.
I'll swear you. You solemnly swear the testimony is meant to be the truth. Whole
Is
truth,
this her,
nothing
you
but the truth,
guys?
help
I
you
can't
God.
remember.
Thank you. Get as close as
We'll
you can
find out
to
in
the
a
little
minute.
microphone and spell your first and last name for the reporter.
My first name is Rosemary,
No.
Rosemary. Middle are how to work the computer.
Not Rosemary.
Since this would have been a call to his work.
Yes.
But you wouldn't call him at home, would you?
No.
On that same love,
Oh, here she is. Okay.
and relevance crying often at the office.
When you spoke,
Oh, Christ.
Jensen's testimony pretty extensively. And I'm shocked how many times they mentioned the word penis.
Oh my gosh, how are we back here
And
again?
what did this case say? Now, this is guidance for me. And I like it because it makes my rulings a little easier.
We might have to start
what
with the
does it
girlfriend.
say
It's,
about
I've already been
This
on for
evidence
2
that
hours,
we are
you
trying
guys.
to
No,
keep out. It's
is
admissible.
the next one that I got to
as
her where
part
they
of
were talking about the emails?
panorama of evidence surrounding the offense. And it talks about numerous witnesses. It talks about the state's theory that before Mr. Jensen, this is the Court of Appeals talking, not me. Before Jensen murdered his wife, Jensen engaged in a campaign of emotional torture by repeatedly confronting Julie with pornographic photos. The evidence involved the relationship between the principal actors, Jensen and Julie, and traveled directly to the state's theory as to why Jensen murdered Julie. Then it goes on to say, it also goes to the issue of the computer.
Here we
Because
go.
there's an issue of pornography on the computer.
Oh,
And that
yikes on
Mr.
bites.
Jensen regularly surfed the computer regarding the issue of pornography. So the computer is also an issue in this case. And then it also, we're going to have other witnesses that are going to testify. The state talked about Kelly Jensen, and I believe her last name is different now. But it also talks about Kelly Jensen's testimony. And it goes on to say It tended to show that Jensen had a long-standing fascination or obsession
Here we
with
go.
penises.
Oh my God.
Given this, was likely the one responsible
I'm gonna have
for
to
the
scroll my
penis-focused
Cash App, you
photos
guys,
stored
because
on the
freaking
home and office
YouTube's gonna
computer and left
demonetize
around the
this
Jensen home
for
that
sure.
emotionally tortured Julie.
Here we go.
Each category of evidence Jensen
let me make
complains
sure I have
upon was
it.
properly
Have
admitted.
it right. I'm gonna have to scroll the
So,
KFC
it's
and
coming in.
5-hour.
I'm not arguing as to
Energy
It's
funds.
relevancy.
coming in.
No, I get that.
You argued this morning that it was relevant, so don't tell me now it's not relevant.
I'm not
I'll
arguing
get the
relevancy.
transcript.
I'm not arguing relevancy.
You argued that this morning,
I
so
did.
we're done. Bring the
Judge,
jury
I'm
back.
arguing
That's
hearsay.
right.
You argued a different objection this morning, and now you're saying I didn't say that.
No, I'm saying, Judge, I agree with you as this morning. I'm not
Can't
arguing.
have every argument you want and get the last word in.
Judge, I'm not arguing as to relevancy from Miss McGinnis. I'm arguing that it's hearsay. She just testified that she wasn't sure if she heard it from Mr. Nearing or heard it from someone else. That's hearsay. And I don't have a right to confront that individual who may have said that to her because that person hasn't been called. That's the objection. I didn't object as to relevancy.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Bring in the jury, and we'll let the state ask their question on the issue of, what was your statement again before I
I
lost
swear
my
to
train
God,
of
if they
thought
say
here.
PP, I'm
So what I was asking is whether
ending this live.
whether Ms. McGinnis had heard from Dave Naring before about this notebook.
That question will be allowed, thank you. I don't know where the bailiffs are.
They went to get the jury, Your Honor.
Like you told them to do. I feel like this is the kind of judge I'd be too. Now, what are we doing? What case is this? Oh, thank you, Heather, whatever. I appreciate that, babe. Thank you so much. Oh, I should fix it. I should fix this. Let me fix this. Hold on.
All rise for the jury.
All right, now it's fixed. Oh, thank you, Emily. Now I gotta fix it again. Thank you so much. Let me fix it. Let me update it.
All right, have a seat. We're going to continue. The objection was overruled. You can go and ask the questions.
Can you? Can we? Okay, good.
So
Thank you so much,
did,
both of you. Thank
Dave
you.
Naring ever tell you anything about finding a notebook with?
Thank you, Heather.
I'm
Whatever
gonna
again.
repeat what I said. It probably was when we were in a group. I didn't have a relationship with Dave Nearing that would have him come and talk to me about penises. So I believe it was, we're standing in the
I'm just
office,
gonna make it an even
talking about
20
this
because I'm not
stuff.
trying to do all that math.
kind of confused at why somebody would even leave it out.
All right, and you've described the context for us now. So what did Mr. Naring say about what he had
Oh wait, no,
found?
that would be what, 15?
He had actually, I know he had found one when Mark worked at a prior firm,
There we go.
and that's the one that I remember Dave talking about. And it was like notepads that people would have with their name on the top. And there were drawings of different sizes and shapes.
Hey, and 5, 6, 7,
kind
8.
of
Good to
page
see you,
after
babe.
page after page.
Page C,
And,
she saw peepees
this
too.
conversation you were involved in, was that years ago?
Yes, it was.
And do you have an estimation of how long ago it was?
When I worked down in the Racine branch, so somewhere between 98 and 2005.
Now, when you were working at that Racine branch, that's the time period when Mark Jensen was arrested for this,
We're-
correct?
We're going to skip ahead
It
because
was
we're going to
actually-
get to
he-
the girlfriend.
Yes, he was arrested in 2002. enough that you can hear it.
And do you see Mark Jensen in the courtroom today?
Yes,
All right.
And can you just point to him and describe something that he's wearing?
he's over there in a suit and tie.
Right, there's only one individual over there in a
Oh.
suit and tie. That's the individual right there?
Yes.
All right, it's been identified. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michelle.
So,
Thank you so
Ms.
much.
Brooks, I want you to think back to approximately 1997.
Thank you very much.
During that time period, did you join the firm Stiefel Nicholas?
Yes.
And do you know when about you started working for that firm?
I believe it was in February.
So you think February of 97?
Yes.
And where were you working?
I don't know what I
Where
expected,
physically were you
I was
her
in St.
to
Louis
look like.
at the corporate office.
but it wasn't
And so
this.
this
I'll say
firm,
that
Stiefel
right
Nicholas,
now.
it is headquartered in St. Louis?
Yes.
And that is where you were working.
Yes.
And what was your job position?
I was administrative assistant to the retail brokerage president.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather.
Sorry.
Whatever.
and so someone who worked at the headquarters of the firm.
Yeah.
And was he like a boss to other brokers at the firm?
Yeah. Yeah. All the brokers reported to him.
And what was this person's name?
Scott McCaig.
And so during this time period, was Stiefel Nicholas, was it expanding, opening offices?
Yes, they were. We had a new president and CEO of the entire company come in, and he was big on expanding it.
And in
Amen
your
to that,
job,
Tony.
with Scott McKay, did you help with the opening of new offices?
I did.
And so did you end up coming to Wisconsin several times to open offices?
Yes.
What is
Now,
he doing?
When do you recall first meeting the defendant, Mark Jensen?
I believe I originally met him around April of '98.
What is he doing with his mouth,
And
you
do you
guys?
recall the context?
You think
how
it's a
met him?
mint, maybe?
He was one of the brokers that was being recruited to open an office up in the Racine, Wisconsin area.
So where were you when you met him? Do you recall?
I was in the corporate headquarters.
I've tried
they
to
flew
block
him
it out
to
of
St.
all my
Louis to
memory
meet with
banks.
people there.
I took a giant magnet to my head in
And,
an attempt to
Mr.
erase
Jensen
those
was
memories.
involved in a new office being opened.
He does.
That is correct.
Refiner.
And
does.
were you one of the people who helped open that office?
Yes,
Where was that office?
it was in Racine.
Do you recall when it opened?
I want to say a couple months later, May, June, somewhere in there of '98.
Okay, so we're talking May or June of 1998 when the Racine office opened.
Somewhere around there, yes.
And so did you actually come to Wisconsin?
Yes.
And during that time period, did you meet Mark Jensen again?
Yes.
After that time period, let's say over the summer of 1998, did you ever communicate with Mark Jensen in any way?
Yes. Yes.
And how would you communicate with him?
There would be phone calls back and forth for various work things. And I believe I went out and he opened the office. I think there were 3 of them that came over then. And then there was another 1, maybe 2 that came over later. And I went out and helped bring those people on as well.
Now, over the course of this interaction with the defendant, did you learn that he was married?
Yes.
And did you learn that he had children?
Yes.
Okay. I have a feeling that her testimony is going to be good. And I don't want to cut it off in the middle. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to watch this tomorrow. We'll start with her. And I want to answer you in 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. What had happened was Julie authored a letter. and she gave it to a neighbor. And if I'm remembering correctly, in the letter, Julie was suspicious of her husband, Mark, and felt that he was the one making her sick, poisoning her, which he was giving her antifreeze. All right. So through the appeals process, the federal court judge found that the letter should not have been admitted into evidence as it violates Mr. Jensen's Sixth Amendment right to confront his accuser, because the letter was written by somebody who's no longer alive. Now, I find that interesting for a couple of reasons. Because do you guys remember the Michael Skagel trial? This was a long time ago when he went on trial for unaliving Martha Moxley. Well, obviously that the crime took place when Skagel was what, like 15, 16, somewhere in there. And I think he went on trials like some forever later, 30, 40 years later. I don't know, because he was, but whatever. It was a long time ago. Well, there were witnesses who were deposed before the trial started, obviously, who subsequently passed away by the time the trial did start. And I remember there was quite a kerfuffle over one specific witness. And I'll have to go back and Google, but for the life of me, I cannot remember this witness's name. But if I'm remembering right, he or she went to the Elon school with Michael Skagel after Martha Moxley's unaliving. And Skagel had made some admissions, I think it was, to him. And his deposition was recorded. It was videotaped back then. And they ended up allowing it to be played because even though I guess by all practical purposes, I would violate his Sixth Amendment right because he doesn't have a chance to confront his accuser. But I think the reason why they let it in is because there was cross-examination. I mean, it was a deposition. So I guess in a sense they felt like, okay, well, yeah, he had an opportunity to roll through his lawyer or whatever. So yeah. So I just remember that. I just remember that trial, and that was interesting. And I don't know, and now thinking about this retrial and the letter, which I guess it does make sense that, and from what I understand, the letter was pretty damning. And I'm trying to remember now because me and Dr. B watched this the pretrial hearings, and she and I were chatting and messaging each other, and we really like this judge because he didn't take any kind of crap at no time, no way. And I remember them discussing the letter, but for the life of me, I cannot remember if they let it in or not. I can't remember. I have to look it up. But anyway, thank you guys all so much for being here. I greatly appreciate the support. You know that I do. I welcome to you guys that join memberships. I appreciate that. And yeah, thank you guys so much. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to finish up the stuff that I need to finish up tomorrow. And I'll probably go ahead and go live a little bit earlier than I did tonight so that we can finish up her testimony, because it looks like it's going to be fairly lengthy. And then we'll be able to get to the good stuff from his trial from yesterday. And I'm trying to forget how I'm going to cover both of these trials, because the other trial is just as interesting. So I'll figure it out. We'll just play it by ear. But I did fix the thumbnail. It now says Wisconsin, like it should. It's bothering me this whole stream, you guys. All right. Thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't given me a like or a thumbs up, do me a favor. What you waiting for? Leave that touch DNA on that like button. And I'll see all of you guys tomorrow. Sounds like a plan? Yes? All right. Good night, you guys. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.